Okay. Yay! Sabra, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh no. Um, well, that is so strange because I can see you just fine.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, and I'm looking and I see you just fine on my phone as well. So it looks like we are live. Do you want to
Okay.
grab your phone and maybe you could get on the page
Oh,
there?
that's all right. You talk to me. I'll keep talking.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everyone. This is our first show um, for uh, for my new program here. Let's see, strong aging and living well.
Let's do that.
Um, we weren't sure on technology, so forgive the little hicks on the technology, but we're going to dive right in. So I am so excited, and thank you so much, Sabra, for being my first guest. I wanted to bring Sabra on to talk about her experience with peptides and longevity. We're both 62 years old. We met recently, and sitting around the pool talking about these peptides and what it's doing for our life and how it's improving our health. And so, what I wanted to start out with, Sabra, is maybe just tell us a little bit about your background, your health journey, and what brought you to even thinking about peptides. Because I know for me, it was a totally new world.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you, Sandy. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I was so happy to get to know you this year, and you've been a blessing. So thank you so much.
Oh,
My
sweet.
name is Sabra McComb. I'm 62 years old. My husband and I have been married for 36 years. We have three daughters, grown, two married, two grandsons. And I'll back up a little bit. I grew up playing sports. I love being active. I played softball and basketball in college, way back when it wasn't uncommon to do that. So it tells you how long ago that was. Um, then after my third daughter was born, I started playing tennis. In 2010, I'm late 40s, had terrible knee pain, comes with the aging, and I was introduced by a nutritional drink by a yoga instructor friend, and I fell in love with that. It was my first introduction into a direct selling network marketing company. And I loved sharing that. I loved sharing it with other people, seeing them benefit like I did. And over those next few years, I got my health coach certification and my health and wellness consultant certificate, not to start those businesses, but just so I could learn more of the education. I loved the science behind it, helping other people live healthy lives. A few years into that nutritional drink, the formulation changed not once, but twice. And then in 2020, another company came and purchased that company. And after that, I was just never really aligned like I had been initially. And so, um, sorry, my phone was dinging. And I went from, having that passion to my kids. I'm an empty nester. My kids are gone. And then I wanted something I could be passionate about. Probably the end of last year, around New Year's, actually, I saw a post on Instagram about this company and talked about peptides and GLP-1s. And I was very intrigued. I didn't really know anything about it, but I understood the GLP-1. And this company was different. It wasn't like I never would have to be the expert. I'd point to the medical professionals and they write script for you. But my husband talked to my husband. He was on board. He said, "Well, let's try these out. Let's try it and see what we think." I'm 62, and when you exercise, things just don't respond like they used to. And so we got on with the products, and it wasn't long. They announced that they were having a meeting in Florida, and I said, "I'm going to that meeting. I'm just going to. I'm loving these products, what they're doing for my body. I want to go and meet these people and see if I'm in alignment with them." And it was one of the best things I've ever done. I show up not knowing anyone. There were 50 women, a couple men, and to be surrounded by like-minded women who have the same passion that I do around health and healthy aging. And I got to meet Sandy, which was amazing. And loved the I love the community. I love the products, the company, the founder. And I said, this is where I want to be, and that's why I'm here.
That's awesome. I agree. It was an amazing event. So let me ask you, what peptides did you start with, and like what issues were you having in your body at the time that the peptide came along? And how did you decide what you were going to even start with? You and your husband, I guess.
Sure. Well, like I said, you get to this age, and well, it doesn't even have to be that, but it was frustrating because I've always been healthy, always exercised, and 10 pounds more, and you're like, okay, why is this struggle? And so we started microdosing the GLP-1s, he and I both, and it was amazing, the reduction in inflammation. And microdosing, you notice not weight so much right away, but you just feel different, and inflammation is gone. And so we started with that and got so excited, well, let's try something else. And so the GHKCU, skin, hair, and nails. And I tell you, my hair hasn't been this long probably since I was in high school, and that's crazy. But also, your 40s, 50s, your hair, it's like, okay, it doesn't grow past my shoulders. So that's one thing that I've noticed, and loving that. And NAD, I was familiar with NAD and glutathione just with a sublingual product that I had used, but the NAD injection, just clarity, also anti-aging benefits. You feel different. So I've tried a number of them. And then lastly, the Wolverine stack for the knee pain, because it's still a thing, but now I have a tool, and it's amazing. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling younger and loving all of these products.
That's so awesome. And I'm on close to the same stack there. So I totally understand. So when you saw, I'm assuming that was probably Beth's post that you saw, what was it that caught your attention about it? And you said, it sounds like you knew a little bit about peptides before.
Sorry, yes, just a little bit. I came across that, and I just found it really intriguing because, the science behind it. I wanted to know a little bit more about it. I came from the all natural thing, but then when I dug in to learn more about peptides and how they just mimic, like they fill in the puzzle pieces that you need as you age, like it resets your body, and I loved that aspect of it. But one of the things that really intrigued me, and this might seem funny, but it's true, was just the positivity of her post and the joy. And joy's been a word of mine that's resonated with me for the last 5 years. And that was a connection. And like I said, I love the community. So that was a big part for me as well.
That's really cool. You said something that I think is really important to highlight, and I wanted to see if you could expand a little, is the natural. So kind of the big trend or the craze for the last, 10 years is always about natural and holistic. And so some people will argue that peptides are not, because they're synthetic or they're made, what are your thoughts around that? And what do you say to someone who says, well, it's not natural. It does, I'm not taking it because it's not natural.
It really was a big thing that held me back at first, but the more I've researched it, I've just been put at ease, and more of the educational information that Ellie MD shares, that has changed my perspective completely. I don't feel like that. It's not a medication that's changing. It's just something that your body recognizes and helps to fill in the spots, And so that's not a concern for me anymore. And so I've gotten past that. And I think there's a lot of supplements seem to be going through a phase too, that's people seem to question them. But yes, with this, I like the fact that they've been around for more than 20 years. And I got a lot of, there's not enough research. Well, there's so much research, and there's so many benefits to that. I have dear friends that have really struggled with metabolic disease, liver, and just to see them, this finally be something, a tool that they can use that's helping. I mean, I'm so grateful to have come across this, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you just hit another key word is tool. I think sometimes, people look at GLP-1, especially in the weight loss space, as this magic, shot that's just going to lose weight. But, when you talk about it being a tool, can you talk a little bit about like what in your mind, I have a clear idea in my mind, like when I think of tool, what it does, how has it helped you as a tool in your life, like losing the weight? And it didn't sound like you had a lot of weight to lose, but, I think we all go through menopause and we have that extra 10 or 15 or 5 even. And I've used to think when my friends would say, oh, I have 5 pounds to lose, I'm like, oh, cry me a river. Like I have, all this weight to lose, but I get it now. 5 pounds when you've always been a certain weight is a lot of weight. So how do you use it more as a tool to help you in both, weight loss as well as kind of a longevity?
Well, I tell you, and I impress upon everybody that I share this with, you have to, first of all, have the education around it. You have to have support when you go into this. And that's what I love about LAMD, because there's so much support. But there's so much that you need to know when you get on these amazing tools, that you have to stay hydrated. You have to prioritize protein, and you have to strength train. You hear all these things, oh, it makes you lose muscle. And it's like any other diet. If you lost weight and you're not building your muscles, you're going to have a problem, because say down the road, if you want to adjust and you haven't built that musculature, then there's nothing that's going to utilize those calories and burn them up once you start, eating again, like you have, if you haven't made those lifestyle changes. So that's so important. So support and empowering people to be successful by giving them the knowledge, that's so important behind it. For me, that was something I've always wanted to do. But honestly, I have upped my weight training, which I'm loving, because my entire life I am starting to see definition. And I was telling my husband this morning, in my eyes, it's just so exciting to me, because I've always felt like I'm healthy, but to actually see that now. I guess.
And how old did you say you were?
62.
That just blows my mind when you think about like at 60, because I feel the same way. I'm like at 62, I feel like I finally have that tool that, God, I wish somebody had told me about 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yes. Yes.
It's you hear, what do you say to people that say, well, you're just cheating? Because I hear that, which blows my mind how anybody can even say that. But have you heard or experienced people tell you that?
I haven't come across people telling me I'm cheating. More like, well, you don't need that. Well, I'm telling you, you don't live in someone else's body and know what they're experiencing. And like I said, I love to stay active and healthy. And it does get so frustrating when, as you age, things just don't work the way they used to. And to finally have something that is letting you see results of your efforts, that's empowering. And I want to share that with other people. I'm like, gosh, if you knew what you could achieve with these, and hopefully I'm sharing that with people in my day-to-day life, because I truly think they're that important, especially with more and more information coming out about all the added benefits, the heart health, the brain health, Alzheimer's, so many things, liver, kidneys. Like I said, I have friends and loved ones that have struggled with those issues. And for me, it's so important. So it's not cheating.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I get asked a lot, and I don't know if you do, is, what are you going to do once you've lost your weight or you've are you going to ever go off of it? And I know for me, I'm like, I don't really see why I would, because there's so many like you just listed 5 different benefits, and there's more besides that. Like, I think if you could say something to kind of flip the switch for people on how they look at this, because I think that's part of it, is they don't see it as a lifetime tool. They see it as this interim fix, and then gonna, I there's just a little bit of mindset shift that needs to happen.
Yes, there definitely is. And I can see that. And I think a lot of people, I don't know if it's a concern with the cost, but another reason I love LEMD so much is because you share it with other people, and you can cover your cost of the product. And like we said, it's so beneficial, and I will continue to microdose. Um, and so, yeah, I don't see that I would get off of it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Now, have you had any, people talk about all these horrible side effects and all these things that happen. Have you experienced any really bad side effects, or any at all, since you've been on any of them?
No, if I could think, maybe back in the very beginning, like just a tiny bit of, oh, I kind of feel a little upset stomach, nausea, but so tiny. And I mean, maybe a couple times at the most. And that's just after you give yourself the injection that day. So no, I've just seen the benefits.
Well, and that's another thing you just said about injection. So, how did you feel about the idea of an injection? I know me, I'm scared of needles. So, that was like the first thing I had to overcome. And I get asked a lot, like, why do you have to inject it? Why can't you just take a pill or a liquid or put a patch on or whatever it might be?
Yeah, well, getting it into the system, that's so important, and that's the best way to do it. And I was a little apprehensive, like I said, right at the very beginning. Oh, but these needles are so tiny, and sometimes you barely feel it at all. Other times it's a little pinch. And once you do it, it's the benefits far outweigh that little tiny bit of discomfort. Trust me.
Yeah, I agree. I was the kid that actually passed out when the doctor came with the needle, or it would take several nurses to hold me still. To My dad got so mad because I took off running down the hallway. And so the idea of giving myself a shot, I'm like, I'm gonna pass out right here. I'm gonna like
Oh
give
no!
myself a shot and I'm gonna be out. And
Oh
so
no!
I actually had a neighbor who's a nurse come over and stand here. So in case I did pass out.
That's a good friend.
Yes.
I hope
I,
she's.
and then, yeah. And well, like you said, after I gave it, I'm like, I didn't even feel it.
I know. You're like, wait, what? What was I so worried about?
I know. So when people say that to me, like my son is terrified of needles, and I'm like, dude, seriously, he's a hockey player. I'm like, really? Like,
You
you're
felt much more pain.
exactly. So you've
Uh,
talked about a lot of different peptides that you've tried. What would you say are your, when you think about longevity and just aging, my whole thing is we're all going to age, but I see older people, and, I play tennis and I play competitive tennis, and the captain for our seniors team is 82 years old, and she's still out on the courts playing competitive tennis. And then I look at my mom, who's 82 years old, who's always been in great shape, but has had a lot of issues happen over the last probably 10 years. And is definitely making her less and less mobile. And unfortunately, she's not particularly open to more alternative ideas. She tends to want to follow, Western medicine. And so I just see, like, aging as, am I going to do this? Like, I'm going to, go at the end and like come flying into home base, still running, all the whole time, or am I going to let this aging thing get to me? And so, as you think about that, what do you see as sort of your, we call it stack, which means, having multiple peptides, but what would you say are the die ride, not going to give up, going into longevity? These are going to keep me strong and healthy, and maybe talk about what they do for you, or what you see them doing, so far for you, that is why you
yeah,
want them.
I guess, well, the microdosing, the GLP-1, I guess had so many benefits. I will continue with that. NAD, I love how that makes me feel. That's a hard one, Sandy, because there's so many good ones, and I know that we'll be coming out with others too. So I cycle. I want to try some different ones.
Can you explain what cycle is for those who don't know what cycle means?
To use them for a period of time and then not use them for a period of time. So switching out, trying different products. I just ordered some Moreland, which
Getting ready to order that.
that helps your growth hormone produce yours. It kind of stimulates your own. And like I said, working out, exercising, really it's the muscle mass. And that's one of the things as you age, sarcopenia, losing your muscle, that's going to take you downhill faster than anything. And so I want to try that and see how that works for me in muscle building and strength. And, you know, I've got 2 grandkids. I've got to get squat and pick up. And yeah, I'm in this for the long haul. So
yeah, I feel the same way. And those are my 2 top ones as well that I don't see like letting go of. Is the NAD has been life-changing for me. Not to mention it's making my tennis game even better. So I'm like definitely not giving that one up. And then the GLP-1 microdosing, you know, when I went into it, I thought it was all about weight loss, and like you know, really described a lot of the other benefits. That was the part that I think I was most shocking for me when I started doing the research, is I had no idea, because I was the person that was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm not taking, you know, because it was a shot. So right off the bat, it was a no. But I thought it was, you know, dangerous. Like I, you know, bought into what people were saying until I kind of researched it. Now I'm like, why would I come off it? It's amazing. And like you said, there's so many other peptides. So what would you tell someone who's, you know, listening to us and thinking about peptides, but they're fearful, or they just, you know, don't want to spend the money? Which I could go into a long dissertation on that, because I had an experience with that. And so I tell people now, if it was your kid who needed this, would you even hesitate to spend the money? And most moms will say, no, absolutely not. So why wouldn't you spend the money on, you know, that's kind of my thing. So what would you say to, you know, anyone who's listening that maybe wants to try a GLP-1 or maybe the NAD? What words of wisdom would you give them, or, you know, to get out of their own way?
well, I'm definitely going to use that one, Sandy. So thank you for that. That's very powerful. And you really are, when you think about it, because being around for your family is so important as we're aging. Talking to people your and my age, it's so important now to take care of yourself so that you will be around for your children and grandchildren. So you basically are doing that. There are ways to offset the cost, like I had mentioned before, and it's so worth it. Your health is so important. Your health is your wealth. You've got to have that, or because nothing else is important if you don't. So
Yeah, my mom tells me that all the time. I mean, as she's, you know, having lots of different issues as she's aging, you know, she talks about it. And, you know, everybody always says that getting old is not for the weak, and it really isn't. And that kind of, you know, I got real sick at the end of 2023, and that was kind of my wake up call into like really going into this preventive, how do I live stronger? And have a better third, you know, because I'd say I'm on the last third of my life.
we're
And
not life anymore.
right. And, you know,
Later midlife.
right. You start thinking about that. How do I live stronger? And, you know, when you have this opportunity to have something that is going to do just that, why wouldn't you? And I encourage people to do their own research on these peptides. These peptides are not like getting a pharmacy, you know, I call it a Band-Aid. A lot of times that's what we're given as Band-Aids to fix it. But, you know, these guys are, the way peptides work, you have them naturally in your body, and you just, after age like 30, they start reducing. And by the time you're at our age 62, that's why, you know, we're looking for our sunglasses and they're sitting on top of our head, or
yes.
And so, we have NAD in our body, and by putting these peptides into our body, they're messengers that tell the NAD that's in our body already, hey guys, we need more, like you need to produce more. And so it really is just about strengthening, our bodies, and investing in ourselves, because one way or the other, you're going to spend money on your health, whether it's at the front end or the back end.
Yes.
So we're coming to the end of the time. I want to just pass it over to you. Any last thoughts? Anything you want to kind of last share or encourage or anything? I know we've gone into a lot of stuff, but maybe just any last thoughts you have.
Kind of like what we had just talked about. There's nothing more important than your health. So give it a chance. And like Sandy and I both said, the injection is really nothing to be afraid of. It's so simple and does not hurt. You may not even feel it at all. Don't hesitate. Give it a try. And you aren't locking yourself into anything when you're just giving it a try. And it could just change your life for the better, like it has mine and Sandy's. So don't hesitate.
Yeah, I completely second what Sabra just said. It has totally changed my life in so many different ways. I feel better than I have felt in a really long time. I think one of the things I've noticed too is just putting you in a happier state of mind. Like when you feel better, you're happier. Like, people always say about your health. And when I don't feel good, I'm not in a very good mood. Like if I'm feeling crappy, so this has been amazing. Sabra, thank you so much. I was going to say, one of the other things I found is a lot of women don't want to talk about their health, and they don't want to talk about things that they might be trying or doing. So I really appreciate that you're open and you're sharing from your heart, because that gives people a chance to really see like what's possible. I've asked another friend to come on, and she just doesn't want the world to know that she's on. And I thought, we as women have to empower each other, and we have to be each other's sister to lift and say, hey, look, here's this. Why don't you try it? It's, this isn't about, and I'm sure it's the same for you, this isn't about a business and selling peptides. It is about improving women's health and living a longer and better life. So
Amen.
Thank you so very much. So grateful that we met, and I'm so grateful you were my first guest, and this has been awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.